Congressman Nunes, and so we should be getting some good information tonight. Thanks.
Oh, we'll do our best, Dennis. Thank you. How are you? I haven't seen you at the restaurant in a while.
You?
Where have you
We've
been?
there.
That's right. My wife and my kids are keeping me busy and broke, so I can't afford breakfast. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rudy Mendoza, and I'm Congressman Nunes' local field representative. For those of you that I have not met, our office is located in Waisea on Main and Church in the old Bank of Sierra building. We're on the second floor. It's rather easy to find. Also, we're rather easy to connect with if you just simply give us a call or email us. Before I leave here, I'll make sure that you all get a business card. I think I brought some. However, I want to throw that out there just to remind you that it is not difficult to access your congressman's office. Now, you may not always see Devin, but your congressman's office is always available to you. So just remember that. I've been here before. I've talked on several issues, given legislative updates. I don't want to talk too long. I'd rather try to answer some questions. Like I said, I'll do my best, and if I cannot answer your question tonight, I would be more than happy to take it back and then either come back and report on it or call you individually, whatever works for you. So Dennis was kind enough to send us a list, and the issues that you're talking about, pretty important issues. Obviously, sanctuary cities is something that is being discussed at the state level, not just in California, but across the country. And of course, now we have had discussions here in the city of Tulare, thanks in part to members of your local city council. And I think the last meeting I was at was kind of a rather lengthy meeting, and the decision was made not to go in that direction. So I'm sure that bodes well for your community. And of course, now the state of California is a different beast. Don't know that those of us that are opposed to it will be successful. Because from what I understand, I guess Jeff was telling me that it sounds like it's might be one of those things that passes here in California. So I think the overall question is, what will the federal government do? It's a little difficult to tell. Quite honestly, I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question, but President Trump has signaled that he would find ways to withhold federal assistance. And I'm not talking just about payments to folks on federal aid, but I'm also talking about potentially money that funds roads and transportation projects, and other funding sources of money that help keep our cities going, potentially money that goes to cops in the form of cops grants, you name it. I'm sure people in government and Washington, D.C. are probably thinking about what types of revenue sources could be affected. But really, I don't have an answer for you because I don't think anybody, at least to our knowledge, has really come up with a definition of what that would mean. What we do know is that by design, a sanctuary city or state would basically hamstring local law enforcement from doing their job. And in talking to our law enforcement partners here in the county of Tulare, we know that our sheriff is very much against that type of situation, because what it does is it hamstrings them. And so we've heard from our police departments in the district, and quite frankly, I think all of the local law enforcement in the area, including the sheriff, and according to him, all 54 county sheriffs have basically, stated the same position. So it's kind of one of those things. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Rudy,
Yes, sir.
you said 54. Is that 54 out of the 58?
Well, it's 58 counties, right? So however many sheriffs there are. Hey, look, I'm running on about 3.5 hours of sleep, so I really apologize.
Well, the reason I asked is the sheriff of San Francisco County, is he in that group that you're talking about?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
That's
so,
I'm just what I was gonna ask.
No, so,
57.
but we know that the majority have made a statement, and you can all read their statement, whatever that is, on their website. I'm sure they posted it somewhere, but it's about protecting our communities. And so I would invite you to visit Sheriff Mike Boudreau's, I think it's on his Facebook page. He's made a statement in regards to this, a couple of statements, and so I think there's a video on his Facebook page that you can look at.
and so has Congressman Nunes said anything specific in terms of his? In this situation, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just saying, in this situation, if you can communicate what Devin has said, this is where I stand.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to deal with the federal government as a whole, where they stand, because obviously you're not going to be able to.
Well, in case you haven't noticed, Dennis, the congressman has been rather busy lately. So we haven't had a lot of chance to talk, but, he and I have not had a chance to talk on this particular issue, but I can assume that, knowing and having worked for the congressman, that he feels like everybody else that, this sends the wrong signal, and it's not, it's not appropriate. I think one of your questions in here, you asked about entering this country illegally, is that a crime? Well, just by using the word illegally, there's your answer there. So we know, I'll segue into immigration. The congressman has long talked about border security and comprehensive immigration reform, but he has said for a long time that you can't have a logical conversation on reforming immigration without first securing our borders. And so, he's said that numerous times. He still holds true to that. He put it in his book when he wrote the book. And so now we have a president that is not only signaled, but he's moving forward with the construction of a wall on our southern border. That's a good start. I think overall, what we would all like to see in this country is a serious discussion on immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, instead of just kicking it down the can with things like sanctuary cities or deferred action programs, the DREAM Act, DACA. Those are all just kind of piecemeal things that don't necessarily address the overall problem. So, overall, I think the congressman is looking forward to hopefully having some serious discussions on immigration reform. In here, you also asked about Obamacare. Well, if you haven't been paying attention, the congressman has always been opposed and took every opportunity to vote against it, to vote against additional funding or to vote to defund certain aspects of Obamacare. So his record's pretty clear. If you've been watching the news as early as today, there's discussion of the AHCA coming back and potentially coming back for a vote, perhaps within the coming weeks. And so, not being in that room, I couldn't tell you, what all the pieces have been shuffled or what some of the deals have been brokered on. But I think Congress understands that, that it's got to get done. It's got to get done this year because, quite frankly, the American people deserve a better healthcare system. And we know that the current ACA is unsustainable. It's failed in so many ways. And so, again, Congressman Nunes has always been opposed to the ACA. He was actually one of the very few members, the only member in California, to my knowledge, that actually wrote a proposal for a health care plan, and it was the Patient's Choice in Healthcare Act. And if you Google that, you'll be able to find something. If not, let me know. I'd be more than happy to try to dig up an old file. But that was his attempt to find a better solution forward versus the ACA. So, let's see, what else do you ask on there that I haven't touched on? You talk about federal debt. Well, yeah, absolutely. We've got to figure out a way to stop that, and obviously healthcare is a big piece of that. Also, tax reform. We haven't had any serious tax reform in this country probably since before I was born. I don't know. But the congressman has long been working on a tax reform proposal, which he calls the ABC tax proposal, and during the presidential campaign, several members of the candidates picked up on it, including then candidate Trump, and now that President Trump has been elected, the president and the GOP have put together something called the GOP tax blueprint. And if you have not had a chance to take a look at it, it has a lot of the language and ideas that Congressman Nunes has been working on for over a decade that are included in that GOP blueprint. And without getting too deep into the weeds, I can tell you that that would also be another priority which would allow for not only increase in gross domestic product, but also, well, let me put it to you this way. There are some businesses, whether you're a small business or corporation, that are at varying degrees of tax liability. And especially small businesses, some are as high as 35-40% tax burden. So what this proposal would do is would allow for 100% expensing of your business-related expenses, but everybody would have an across-the-board tax rate of 25%. So can you imagine the power that would be created by business in America if they had an additional 10 to 15% of revenue that would go back into the business for either growth or hiring new employees or just being able to incentivize employees, making it more competitive. It's projected that the GDP would grow by 6 to 8%, I believe is the number. Don't hold me to that, but I think that it is. But that's a net increase in the gross domestic product. And so, overhauling the tax code and the healthcare, those have to go together. Those are two big things that can significantly impact our budget for many years to come. So, let's see. Dennis, I can't read very well without my glasses. I think we covered just about everything.
Everything that's on that list.
So you have additional questions? I'll do my best to try to answer them. Yes, sir.
Carlos Solis is the owner of the telephone system in Mexico.
Slim.
Slim.
Okay.
He is also the owner of a worldwide cement, aggregate, and other things.
Okay.
In 2008, he had borrowed everything that he wanted to borrow on the short-term market. And the short-term market dried up in 2008. He sold his Australian operations for $2 billion. He was still $10 billion in the hole. He went to the Mexican government. They didn't have the money. So apparently in the first slush funds that came out of the Obama funding, $10 billion was sent to the Mexican government to cover this shortfall.
Okay.
Is there any way we can find out what's happened to it and if we're getting anything back?
Well, I first of all don't know what you're referring to, but I would be more than happy to do a little bit of research and try to find out. I don't know. I don't know anything about Mr. Slim other than I know how to pronounce his name. I do know he's one of the richest men in Mexico, if not the world, for that much. But that's an interesting story. And like I said, what is your source? Where did you read this?
Rock Products Magazine.
Who?
Rock Products Magazine.
Okay. That's a trade magazine?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, share it with me, and I'd be more than happy to do a little digging. But I don't know how to answer that question. You have a question out there.
Yeah, so when they return from recess and they're going to have the vote on the spending bill, The Democrats, as we know, are already threatening for the shutdown. Nancy Pelosi said on the conference call, we've got the leverage, they've got the exposure, meaning blame it on us. But is Devin planning to align with the administration's requests for this spending bill, for the money he's wanting for the wall, the military? He's asking for an extra provision it's just a different provision to be put in that would allow him more latitude in denying sanctuary cities their funding. I guess that could work in.
That's a good question. That's not a question that I've had an opportunity to talk to the congressman about, but I mean, obviously, there are a lot of priorities, there are a lot of things that have been discussed in the budget. There's a lot of different things. So ultimately, the question is, how do you pay for these things? How do you pay for border security? How do you pay for the additional staff that the president has called for? We also have military considerations, our defense budget. The president has also signaled increases to military hardware production in this country. So, there's a lot of things that are on the table, quite frankly.
So you don't know if he plans to align or with Trump's
I have not
request?
talked to the
I think Trump's
Congress-
already put out his request.
Yeah, I have not talked to the congressman about where he feels, because I think a lot of it is hypothetical. But, again, that's a good question if you want to specifically
Well, there's going to be like
ask.
this,
Yeah.
there's going to be a battle. There's going to be that conservatives, and then we have GOP, and then we've got those
Yeah.
so-called Tuesday group moderates that are more concerned
That's funny,
with
today's the first time I've heard that term, Tuesday.
You haven't heard that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I must not be paying attention.
Where did you hear
Charlie
it?
Dent.
Fox News, I think.
Oh, you
They're
did?
talking about Tuesday morning, what do they call it, Tuesday morning?
It's Tuesday group, it's Charlie
Tuesday.
Dent leads
Yeah.
it, and they're moderate, they say they're moderates, but they're so aligned with the Democrats, particularly on Obamacare, they don't want to reject any of the Title I
Yeah.
regulations in Obamacare.
Well, if you guys know Congressman Nunes, he's definitely not.
I know that's not him, I'm
Yeah.
just, it's gonna be, it's the biggest thing we're facing, this
Yeah.
spending bill.
Well, I'll definitely ask him that question. I'm sure you probably want to know more specific stuff, specifically to different things.
I
that
just
you
wanted
mentioned.
to say, yes, I'm in line
Yeah.
with President Trump's request, because he's.
Well, look, at the end of the day, the man's got a vote, and without getting in his head, I can't answer that question, but I'll definitely ask him. So, anybody else have another question? Yes, sir.
Rudy, in terms of the national debt, how much does California contribute to that? And the second part is there any substance in California attempting to become separate from the United States?
Well, on the first question, I have absolutely no idea. If I was an economist, I'd probably be able to drop a number right off the top of my head, but I don't know. What I do know is that we produce 25% of the nation's food supply just out of the Central Valley alone. That's an issue of national security. It's an issue of national significance. As far as secession from the Union, I know that there are people on both sides that feel very strongly. Those that are for it, those that are against it. What is the probability? I have no idea. Do I think it's possible? I don't personally think it's possible. But I think that, it's come up several times, and probably it's an issue that will continue to come up from time to time. Now, how do you split the state in half, or how do you completely remove yourself from the union? I mean, that's got to be an incredibly difficult process to go through. And so, again, it's probably one of those issues that just won't go away.
It's this business of the sanctuary state.
Sure.
I'd almost think that they would rather align themselves with Mexico than with the United States.
Okay. You had a question? Yes. Oh.
Well, I really wasn't going to say much.
Ah, shucks. I was inches from a clean getaway.
I can't hear you very well. My hearing aids are.
Come on up here, I don't bite.
I'm not hearing everything you say. I see you walk a lot, so I know you're covering a lot of miles. But up on the top, it says, you're representing Congressman Devin Nunes at this meeting.
Yeah.
to bring answers to the questions. We submitted to the congressman's office last month. You've had no time to talk to him about some of these things, so you obviously don't have any answers to the questions. The answers I hear are answers I hear all over anyway, not something specific to what he feels or what he thinks. It's gray.
Well, I think I've been pretty clear on the issues as far as debt. You know, he agrees with you that we have a runaway debt, and I've answered what his thoughts are on how to reduce the debt. On immigration, I think I was pretty clear, you know, border security, so I'm not sure, I don't
Your
understand.
answer to immigration was
Okay,
comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah.
I've heard that word for years.
Yeah.
Comprehensive immigration reform.
right.
Specifically, what is a comprehensive immigration reform when we have laws that we have not even adhered to for many years that have destroyed this situation?
Well, you
Why
have,
can't we adhere to the laws?
You-
What is the problem with
the
it?
congressman agrees with you. However, what that is going to ultimately look like, I don't think anybody really knows until you actually get people to sit down and actually talk about it.
That's our question.
And yeah,
How
so
do you
again,
get
you've
people to
got
sit
a,
down and
you've
talk
got a
about
willing congressman. You've got a willing congressman that's willing to sit down and talk about the issue. Has for a number of years behind the scenes with other members of Congress.
And we have to resolve the issues.
Well, again, you're talking about one member out of 435, 535 if you count the Senate. So again, what's happening today with a new president who has signaled a lot of things, including his resolve to enforce laws, which everybody in this room agrees is the right thing to do, including the congressman.
The congressman agrees that whatever Trump wants to do.
The congressman agrees that we have to enforce our laws. But ultimately, to answer the question of what comprehensive immigration reform is going to look like,
Can't answer.
you can't answer it until you get everybody to sit
Well,
down.
I don't think Congress is going to have a say in that so much. Do you? I mean, they're just either fund what President Trump has planned or not.
You know, I think, you're right. I
Yeah.
think the president has already done things by executive order, so maybe Congress has missed out on that
Well, and
opportunity.
just following the law is a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
first step, so.
Yeah. Well,
I think
again,
that's gonna be-
I think it goes without saying, but if you want me to say it, the congressman agrees. We have to enforce our laws. That's why I started by saying that we have to have border security. That should be a huge signal to you that the congressman believes in enforcing our laws by making sure that we address border security. You got to remember that as chairman of the Intelligence Committee, he is very well aware of threats that are occurring all over the globe, including our southern border. And it's not just people that are being brought into this country illegally, it's potential terrorism threats, it's drugs, it's all of the illicit activity that takes place with homicides and people that are brought into this country by force. So, yeah, I think you're on the same page as the Congress.
It just seems like he should be going to the mic every day. They're so eager to cover him. Why
Yeah.
not go up there every day and just pound it at him?
Well,
This is what-
look, if you're not aware, the congressman is notoriously a private individual. For him to have been on the news for as many weeks as he was on this whole issue of the leaks was a rather extraordinary thing. But he
I'm
did
glad to see
spend
him out there.
But he did spend a lot of time answering as many possible questions as the media could ask. So he's not opposed to it, but you all know as well as I do that the left is very good at changing the narrative. And so when they own Hollywood, when they own mainstream media, when they own educational institutions, I mean, those three right there are your three biggest mouthpieces. So, again, I think, appreciate you paying attention to the fact that Congressman has been outspoken on certain things. But, I would encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to be outspoken as well. Yes, Michelle?
The things that we're bringing up is just not something that happened since Trump was elected president, though.
Yeah?
What happened to the 8 years with Obama? Why wasn't the law followed then? Why wasn't that pushed for him to follow the laws, you know?
I think you need to ask President Obama and his administration. Again,
It's still the same congressman, though.
No, but.
the positions that I've shared with you today that the congressman has on these issues, look, I've been with the congressman for 6 years, almost 7 years. He had written a book by then where he wrote his position on all the different policy issues, including the ones that you asked for. They haven't changed. Every opportunity has been asked a question. They haven't changed. Those positions are still the same. So unless now you're just asking because we have a president that is finally willing to enforce the laws, well, you know, again, the congressman, his position has never changed. He agrees with that. It's just that you're probably just now paying attention to what he's been working on.
No, but
Yes.
that they couldn't get it going previously.
Well,
Yeah.
Michelle, not only were before, under Obama, were we not following the laws, we were told not to, through prosecutorial discretion. Obama said, these immigration laws will not be followed. And so I don't think that, I don't think the members of Congress could have really done anything about that. But I am curious about Sanctuary City.
Let's cover this for a second. And I did a Facebook post on this. Some of you may have seen it. Because I was always frustrated as to why Congress wasn't able to rein in President Obama. The proper way to phrase that is, why wasn't Congress able to rein in the executive branch? And Phil Klein did an excellent post on his little Klein on the Constitution a couple of weeks ago, and it's one of those, what a dummy. I get it. I understand now. And it was very simply this. Congress creates and funds the agency, the bureaucracy. The moment they birth that, they hand it to the executive branch. So all of those bureaucracies are working for the executive branch, which means they're working for whoever is sitting in that chair. There's the problem that you have throughout the federal bureaucracy and their overstep, their overreach of their powers that they were created for. Congress legislates, creates them for this purpose. The executive branch tells them, do this, do this, do this, do this. And Congress is thwarted to the extent that all they can do is hold oversight hearings and bring to light the lowest learners and the other evildoers, and bring that to light, but as Devin Nunes is famous for saying, at the end of the day, it's the executive branch that they're working for. And so we now get to see that executive branch with a whole different track than we had for those 8 years of lawlessness. And now this is showing up in Jerry Brown, the state of California, wanting to be lawless. So there's the problem. They create it, Congress creates it, the executive branch owns it, and the only power that they have is the funding. And you see how you're caught on the fence on funding because it's supposed to be doing this, and yet the executive branch can say, okay, well, I also want you to do this, and divert funding, manpower, and all of that stuff into being an overreach. There's the problem with that. So, yeah, in times past I've been frustrated with Congress, not necessarily Devin specifically, with Congress for allowing too much power to flow to the executive branch. But that is part of that process, that separation of powers, that allows the executive branch to do so much garbage stuff that we don't like done.
Can't somebody be funded or not give them as much?
Yes.
That's the power they have.
That's how Bill
It's like
Clinton
telling
shoved Agenda
kids,
21 through the
yeah.
entire federal bureaucracy, because they're working for the executive branch.
Okay, so what-
I think Dennis needs to go into teaching. He reminds me of my civics teacher. Yeah, so I mean, the other issue is, not everybody is on the same page, even amongst the Republicans. So when you have divisions, it makes it incredibly difficult. And I think that's where people like Dennis and yourselves get frustrated. It's like, why can't we all just work together to fix the issue? And so again, the congressman, he's been very vocal about that too. He's even taken members of his own party to task when they are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or they're not rowing the boat in the same direction. I don't know if you remember the old, lemmings with suicide's vest comment that he made. He's not afraid to call them out. But that is another part of the problem is, when folks don't work together. And now that we have the majority, we stand a better opportunity to get a lot of things done. Anyway, so again, I'll remind you, if you have further questions, if you want to invite us back, be more than happy to come back. And
Yeah, so my question is, how can a congressman, and then you guys in the office, obviously be involved in that, how can he then send down information? And this goes back to what Janelle was talking about. Janelle, I believe that there was a lot of stuff where he was on the microphone, in front of the camera, and doing things that, of course, we don't get to see, because 89%, according to the latest poll I saw, or article that I read, 89% of media is against President Trump, because they are in a liberal vein and the socialist kind of all that goes. So
We saw quite a bit of them.
we did, but I'm saying that there's also
We could see
other
more.
stuff.
I would love to see more.
Yeah.
Just
So
putting stuff out there.
well, again, maybe I didn't say this clearly enough, but the congressman spent a lot of time in front of the media. Unfortunately, as Dennis is trying to point out, they only showed this much. So while the congressman spent a lot of time answering questions for reporters, I think one instance I remember I was watching, he was in front of cameras asking questions for 45 minutes straight, which is, unusual, especially for this congressman,
He's
because,
gonna have to start tweeting.
well, I'm glad you asked that
Yeah.
question. I'm glad you asked that question. Let me tell you what you can do, is if you have not done so, is you need to sign up for his email listserv.
okay, who gets his email? Who's on his email list?
If you're not getting it,
Yeah,
then
you need to.
you're missing out on a good communication tool. I think we do tweets once in a while. I don't know. But we do use a lot of social media to make sure that folks are kept abreast. Our email listserv is a pretty big one. You get an email and the congressman will give a short kind of recap, and he says, if you want to learn more about this, then click on this link and it takes you onto a whole new list of articles and whatever information might be relevant. But it's a good source. Also, you got the pound 250 on your cell phone. You do pound 250 and you sign up for that, and you can do that through the website, by the way, and you'll get an alert when the congressman is going to be on Fox News, on CNN, on the Ray Appleton show.
How do you do that?
Yeah, just go onto his website, and as soon as you go onto the www.nunes.house.gov website, that'll pop up. You can sign up for the phone thing, and it's called, I call it pound 250. It's been so long ago, but it's basically like a text alert. Okay, you know how you get those text alerts from Pizza Hut? Hey, $25.99 tonight for two pepperoni specials. Yeah, except the congressman will send you something a little little different. Yes, Michelle?
Okay, so I would like to know about water storage.
Well, I can talk to you ad nauseum about water storage.
Well, nothing's being built though.
No, I understand. And so I don't need to go into the long history of how the congressman has worked on this issue since he's been in Congress. I'm sorry?
Has it disappeared during his watch, pretty much?
No, ma'am. So,
No, water hat.
I know.
well, not his work in Congress. So I will share this with you. The congressman has worked on numerous pieces of legislation. 1837, which was the last bill, House Resolution 1837. A couple years ago, it passed. Then Speaker Boehner got on the House floor and spoke for it. It passed in the House, and then it was never picked up in the Senate. Our problem has always been our senators from California have never supported anything that has come from Congressman Nunes in terms of water legislation. So now we have a new bill called House Resolution 23, which is being authored by Congressman David Valadao. He's the principal author and co-authored by Congressman Nunes. A lot of that language in that bill is from Congressman Nunes, and it does several things, but primarily what it does is it actually delivers real water by getting rid of the San Joaquin River settlement and the CVPIA, the Central Valley Project Improvement Act. And so I think upwards of 2 million or 2+ million acre-feet of water a year would be delivered. The other component of it is the feasibility study requirement. So in order to either raise Shasta Dam, enlarge San Luis Reservoir, build Temperance Flat, sites, new Melones, it takes a feasibility study on behalf of the federal government. Well, the congressman, like many of us, have been waiting for over a decade to get a feasibility study. You know, how much is it going to cost? So what this bill does is, besides delivering water, it says that the federal government has to produce a feasibility study by the end of that year. So if it passes next year, it would have to be produced by the end of the year. So in terms of water storage, that's also included there. It's a two-pronged approach. It's addressing the federal policy, but also allowing to move forward on water storage. Now, California has a different way of looking at priorities. As you know, the governor is hell-bent on building high-speed rail. And unfortunately now we have a $5 billion transportation tax that we're all going to be paying for. So I think, you know, going forward, that's probably going to be the biggest hurdle next to getting this new resolution passed in Congress. Because what Congressman Nunes was successful at doing is when he brought then candidate Trump to Tulare County, he educated him on the water issue, amongst other things, and the president then signaled, okay, Congressman Nunes, I will support this because it's a no-brainer. Okay, you guys are getting your water, you're losing your water due to bad policy, so once I get elected, you put a good bill in front of my desk, once it passes, I'll sign it, I'll support it. So if we're ever going to pass sound water legislation, this is the year, because you have a willing president. And I like to remind people of that because when H.R. 1837 passed in the House of Representatives, it was dead on arrival. The President Obama, on the eve of the vote, signaled that if that bill would ever land on his desk, he would veto it. So we've got willing players, we've got good legislation. If you have not seen House Resolution 23, call up Congressman David Valadao, have him send you a copy, or just Google it, or call me, and I'll make sure you get a copy of it. But you should all get behind it, because this is the best piece of water legislation that has the best chance of passing. Hope I answered. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know, whatever happened, and this isn't that long ago, they did a feasibility study. It was a monster thing, and the League of Women Voters happened to have the person who was in charge of it as a speaker explained this whole thing, and they had decided that temperance was going to be enlarged.
Yeah.
Well, whatever happened?
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, unless you tell me what was specifically, I've never heard of one being produced, but.
That's why we would have to have another one, was my point.
So Rudy, I think the difficulty here is in being able to understand the state of California and how much authority they have in these water issues that we're talking about. Let's take Temperance Flat, just to make it simple, as opposed to how much the federal government has in the way of authority in making that happen. And that's, where's the demarcation line there?
Yeah, and Dennis, you and I have gone around and around with this, on this question over the years. We've talked about this. And right now, the federal policy's got to change. The language has got to change. We have to address the Environmental Species Act. We have to address the San Joaquin River Settlement. Those are all federal policies. The problem that we have going forward, though, now is now we're dealing with SGMAs, as you very well know. So the state has created all of these rules now for groundwater recharge. And we've got all the, I don't know how many of you here are property owners or farmers, okay? So you know this, I don't need to preach to you. But now this is a whole new example of how the state is preemptively making a move to ultimately, in my opinion, someday take over how much water we pump out of the ground. Whether you're a small farmer with 10 acres and a horse, or you're, somebody who lives out in the country, or you've got 10,000 acres of oranges, or you're a city like Tulare. Ultimately, you're going to be told how much water you can pump out of the ground.
Not someday, 3 years.
Well, unfortunately, it's already happening today, right? It's already happening today. So, yeah, there are a lot of things wrong with it, but the authority over the policies with the federal government, ultimately what happens with California in project construction, who knows? But maybe we get a new governor that is going to be all in for water storage. But here's something that you need to keep in the back of your mind. You probably already know this. But we lose on average over 75-76% of the water. So we've had some really good wet storms here lately. We've lost 75% of that water. And it's gone completely out to the ocean. Don't believe me, look it up. The numbers are out there. I think the water storage or water something puts out a good report once a week. Or ask your water agencies if you're a member of a water agency, and they'll provide you with that data. But it's alarming water. I've talked long enough. I'd be more than happy to take questions afterwards, or if you want to give me a call, like I said, I'm more than happy to have coffee with you, or you want to give us a call. But I do have to go. I do have to leave.
Real quick,
Yes, sir.
You said that was House Resolution 23?
Yes, sir. It's called the Gaining Responsibility Over Water Act, GROW Act.
Because
House Resolution 23, David Valadeo. Yeah, I don't know what you come up, but just give me a call, and I'll email you a copy. Better yet, why don't I do this? Why don't I email a copy to Dennis, and he can forward it all on to you? That be fair?
Because that's not what's coming up on Google here as House Resolution.
Well, what comes up?
Palestinian.
Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they want our water too.
Just real quick question
Yes.
off the topics here. Just curiosity about how, does the congressman know about these town halls that are being called by the liberals, saying that they are being done as Devin Nunes town halls?
Yeah, they're not
And then
Devin Nunes town halls. All they are is opportunities for them to get a little press. And look, as I stated before, the congressman is not afraid to hold town halls. The last one he held was right here in Tulare. He had almost 1,000 people here. He's held them equally in Fresno County. If you want to put a group of people together that are going to be there to heckle and yell and scream and get a soundbite for YouTube, then
I don't think
then
that was
that's
the
not gonna-
question.
yeah,
She just want to make sure he knows that the
Yeah.
left is doing this here.
no, he's very, trust me, he's very well aware.
Because some of
But-
the congressmen are going left, like
Yeah.
Isa's getting awfully Democrat because I think they think that their constituency.
Well, I was explaining what I was explaining to you so that you understand why the congressman, well, I think you understand, but the point is, yes, he's very well aware of these groups. We know who they are. They call our office. They've identified themselves. I think one of them's Indivisible, 21st Freedom, or Crew. I mean, they're all out there. But again, the congressman's office, if you really want to have a conversation about an issue and you want to have a logical conversation, you want an answer, just call our office. We'll do our best to answer your questions.
Hey Rudy, we're praying for you guys.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Did you not know that?
No, I believe it, but I still have to thank her. Again, thank you for the opportunity. It's always good to come by and visit with you. And
Thank you very much.
Dennis, I think you did a wonderful year. Everybody have a good night. Good to see you.